All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Berezin from msdynamicsworld.com, and thanks so much for joining us for today's session, Chaos to Clarity, 3 Ways Dynamics AX and AP Automation are Transforming the Back Office. Today's presenter is Lauren Phillips, a manager at Bottomline Technologies. Lauren is actually a returning speaker for us, and he's a veteran of the document management and AP automation space. It's great to have him back. So as we get started, I just want to add that we invite you to share your feedback and ask questions today during the presentation. Also, be on the lookout for some questions from Lauren, as we'll have a few polls to help drive the conversation and keep this webcast as interactive as possible. Please use the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of the screen to ask your questions during or after the presentation. The session will also be recorded and available online within the next day or so. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Lauren Phillips.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I know we've got an international crowd today. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. As Adam stated, an interactive session today. We definitely want to hear from you. Should you have any questions, use the tools at your disposal to do so. I'm going to jump right into our presentation and give a quick overview of the agenda for today, so we know exactly what it is we're going to be speaking about and some of the information we're going to be getting to you. Start with a brief introduction of myself after this slide, and we'll get right through that. We want to talk about some of the drivers, some of the situations that are currently challenging financial professionals. These top drivers across the board have shown themselves to be very strong in the industry. We're going to move from there into determining what's undermining CFO's performance. What are some of these challenges really doing from a tactical position in regards to cash flow inaccuracies and what the bosses are really seeing. We're then going to talk a little bit about why automate. What are some of the things that really bring our customers, as an example, to the decision to automate their accounts payable environment? And then we're going to talk a little bit about your business, and we'll wrap it up with just a get in touch or some communication metrics there so you can get in touch with us. Again, my name is Lauren Phillips. I'm an area sales manager here at Bottomline, and I've been for many years in the document management, content management, AP automation space, and for many years have seen this industry grow from what was at its beginning really something as simple as digitizing paper documents. We're going to talk a lot about paper today. We're going to better understand and come away from this session with a more thorough understanding of what paper really does within an organization and within the AP and accounts payable environments. So with that said, let's take a look at the situation. Why are we here? Why are we doing this today? A lot of financial professionals are looking at some of the things that really hinder their performance. They're constantly looking for ways to get ahead, get a jump on their competition, become more efficient. One of the things that really inhibits them from doing so is getting financial information delivered to them in a timely and efficient way. In 2015 today, in global markets, as we find ourselves in competitive situations around the world, waiting for a month-end report or a quarter-end report or an annual report is simply not going to cut it in today's business world. And it's these top drivers, and we see this information in this particular reference coming from the Aberdeen Group, where their top driver is getting that financial information delivered to them quickly and accurately. They like the idea of having full visibility into their systems, and an automated solution allows for that. An automated solution really brings a full, from beginning to end throughout the process, brings a full visibility for financial professionals to get their numbers, to get their cash flow and cash spend liabilities right under their fingertips so they can understand what's happening. With that information, they have a lot better chance of managing the workloads and understanding where bottlenecks are. It's a pain point that Aberdeen and others and us at Bottomline have seen over the years, where they simply do not have, in a paper world, the ability to get that information out of the system. They know it's in there, but it's very difficult to get it out of the system without the proper tools. And this is something that, again, we've seen and we're going to talk about throughout today's presentation. Some of the things that are undermining CFO's performance, again, this insufficient visibility topic, and it's going to come up again. It's the #1 driver, not having access to that information. All right, this is our boss, right? This is our CFO. Oh, excuse me, back up. I skipped a slide, or I jumped a little too ahead there. Folks, we're going to have a quick poll question here. It should be up on your screen. Take a brief moment there and take a look at our first poll question. How many invoices do you process per year? It's going to give us an understanding of the attendees on the session today, just to get an idea of the number of invoices you're currently processing. And this is an annual number. Just give you here a few seconds to fill that out. You'll find the submit button down at the lower right. Okay, thanks everybody, appreciate that. I don't know if we have any results just yet, but we'll give that another few seconds.
Looks like we've got the results are in.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, 23% process less than 25,000 invoices per year. 31% process between 25,000 and 100,000 invoices per year, and 8% process more than 100,000 invoices per year. And then there were a couple of people that didn't answer the questions.
Okay. And that's an interesting point. It certainly is in alignment with what we see in the industry, that sweet spot between 25,000 and 100,000 invoices per year processed manually is really a sweet spot for folks when you're looking at automating your accounts payable. So let's continue with the presentation. We'll have another poll here coming up in a slide or two. So again, what's undermining some of the CFO's performances? And we've seen 3 factors that are doing this: the visibility that we spoke of, operational inefficiency, and excessive cost. We've talked about the visibility and having access to that information. And when we look at things like operational inefficiencies, they're all along the process, from the very opening of an envelope to get the invoice and look at it, all the way to adjudicating the invoice at the end of the process. In the paper world, as we all know, paper is inherently inefficient in its nature. It's not a particularly efficient medium when it comes to sharing information. Something as simple as an example, a paper invoice having its information, its data, entered into a system in what we call a heads-down data entry environment. That's somebody looking at the invoice at their desk and typing every character for every field that's pertinent into their ERP system. And this could be the usual suspects of invoice number, invoice date, invoice total, vendor ID, maybe tax information. All of that information being entered by hand in this paper world is fraught with error rates. And those error rates have been studied for many, many years, and they typically range in the 10 to 12% range when we look at heads-down data entry error rates. That operational inefficiency, when we have an error being entered at the beginning of the process, keeps costing us money downstream. Bad data, every time it's interacted with, gives us an issue as we move through an accounts payable process. And that simply translates to excessive costs. Every time that bad data needs to be looked at, fixed, referenced, etc., goes back to these operational inefficiencies. If you just look at the implied costs of doing accounts payable in a paper-based world, there's the very hard costs and there's soft costs like what we talked about here. Part of this poll, which is from FEI Daily, less than a year ago, back in November of 14, we take a look at typical invoice costs, and we see between $2 and $10 per invoice coming from that particular survey. And this is paper-based manual processes, between $2 and $10 an invoice. What you're typically going to see when you automate your accounts payable environment is less than $2 per invoice. That's, again, from a pure operational standpoint. When you start looking at soft costs, as an example, the benefit of eliminating the need to track down an invoice to answer a vendor's question, as an example. Having everything at your fingertips, at your disposal instantly, and not having to leave voicemails, send multiple emails, not be able to find the actual content you're looking for to address this accounts payable question, all those soft costs can add up significantly. Get my slide to change here. Some of the consequences that come from these inaccuracies within cash flow. Take a look at another FEI study. The same study found that 6 out of 10 treasurers are rating cash flow forecasts as either significantly inaccurate or containing major inaccuracies within those cash flow forecasts. That's an enormous burden on those financial individuals. And it goes back to working within a manual and a paper-based environment. When you take an inaccurate snapshot of your finances and you lack that visibility we spoke of earlier, there's a number of areas that are no longer achievable. You're unable to address strategic imperatives, fund growth. Pay down debts becomes difficult. Financial mergers and acquisitions become difficult because you're not understanding fully and in real time your finances. Again, this came from FEI Daily just less than a year ago. And I think we're going to have a quick another poll if we could. Adam, if you could fire that up.
Yep, all set.
I'm seeing it under the polling tab. And we'll give that another 10 seconds or so for everybody to get those submitted. Adam, we got any results there yet?
Yeah, they're definitely coming in. We'll
okay.
give people just a few more seconds, yeah, to finish
sure.
it up. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so the results are in, and let me actually get this up here. So what is your average per invoice cost? 46% said between 0 and 25,000. and then we had 8% say 25,000 to 100,000.
Now, I think we've got our multiple choice answers.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that.
Yeah, no, I think they got held over. If you're paying that much, no. Apologize for that, folks. We'll move on, but I think our multiple choice answers have got held over from the previous question, but that's not to worry. It won't slow us down one bit, so sorry about that. So let's take a look at why automate. What are some of the things that are driving people to bring automation to their environment? We take a look, and we've talked about it, and I said you'd see it many times throughout the presentation. Gaining visibility. This is what CFOs are seeking. They want that efficiency and that visibility and the cost effectiveness. And it really goes to the larger point of gaining and acquiring control over your processes. And it's the lack of control in a paper-based manual process that CFOs, accounts payable supervisors, and even AP staff understand simply can't exist in today's competitive world. AP automation, as we've said, allows you to gain visibility, increase the operational efficiency, and reduce the costs. Back again from the FEI study, 39% of organizations had increased as much as 10% from the prior year. So with growth comes, in a paper-based world, more paper and more of the very burden you're trying to solve. 24% of those surveyed of organizations say the volumes had exceeded 10%. So we've got more paper than we ever had imagined. And I've been in the industry long enough to know that the word paperless is no longer used. We simply don't refer to that term anymore because there's more paper than there ever has been. The ability to print documents from any device on the planet has become obviously a strong factor in that. But we've got a lot of reasons now why to automate this process, and it's a complete process from beginning to end in accounts payable automation. So take a look at it from Aberdeen's group, and this is from Aberdeen's AP Invoice Management in a Networked Economy. This is a study they did a couple of years ago, but it's pertinent to our discussion today. And we take a look at some of the things that are driving their decisions to automate. Difficulty finding and managing paper-based documents, cited as the most market pressure by 36 of those respondents. If you think about, again, in the paper world, simply trying to find the document that you need that's going to give you the information for you to do your job. Something sounds as simple as that, but when in the paper world, it becomes a very difficult thing, particularly when you're still in process and that invoice has physically traveled down the stream for the processing. You don't quite know where it is. When you digitize those invoices and they become images within a retrieval system and become searchable within your Microsoft environment, leveraging things like SharePoint, the access to that information instantly has an enormous impact within the organization to simply get a question answered regarding an invoice, and that's why you see these numbers. There is a tie in this study for lack of timely response, either in terms of reconciling accounts or addressing exceptions. And that, again, in the paper-based world, that's a shared workload between accounts payable staff, where they need to interact with other folks to reconcile those accounts. Not having the appropriate content at your fingertips deters those individuals from finding the information they need and reconciling that account or addressing the exception. 22% came back from this group and said the inability to take advantage of early payment discounts was something that was driving them towards accounts payable automation. And that's a very significant number in a lot of organizations. Gaining access to that, simply put, could pay for a system to be implemented at your organization. Something as simple as now leveraging early payment discounts and getting those refunds back from your suppliers. And then a small 9% supplier demands to shorten the payment times. In other words, their suppliers coming at them and wanting them to get things turned around and get to the 21st century, as it were. So a good report and a good understanding, a good slice here into a sample group as to why they have decided to move into an accounts payable automation solution. And it gives us some good insight into that. Some of the pressures on financial and accounting functions. The need to simplify risk. Right, so there's inherent risk in all of these, and this is a study from Aberdeen back in August of last year. It's a very good snapshot of what the pressures that we share with our colleagues. 65% of the companies cite demand for expedited financial information delivery. We talked about that at the very beginning. This is another manifestation of this need to have this financial information delivered in a timely way, needs to be delivered to devices as we move throughout the office and away from the office and have mobile connectivity. We're seeing a growing number of volumes of transactions and greater regulatory oversight, and that can be internal or external from a regulatory perspective, where we simply need to have this information. We've seen folks who have, in an audit situation, in the paper world, it's a very cumbersome event. It takes time and money, and there's a lot of printing going on, and paper and toner costs skyrocket during these audits because you're in your paper world. That's what you're required to present to regulatory folks who are performing the audit. In the digital environment, in an automated solution, you've got information at your fingertips and running reports and dashboard information, having digital images at your disposal and giving folks access to that information in a limited way potentially is clearly a more efficient way of addressing an audit. So it's these kinds of financial accounting functions that across the board can be addressed by simply implementing accounts payable automation. And just a few more slides on some of the things that are driving this, and this comes from in the earlier Aberdeen group report. And we see the big ones here, right? A mandate to reduce costs. Where is this coming from? Typically the boss, CFO, and others, and leadership within organizations wanting to become more efficient and reduce costs. And you can see how 62% demand for operational efficiency and 61% mandate to reduce costs, those two large circles there, kind of go hand in hand. Those two are clearly working together. When we take a look from leadership in some of these surveys and studies of what they're trying to accomplish, and accounts payable automation is clearly the big step to get them on the road to that. From managing invoices and updating ERP, real-time integration with ERP, these are the things and the pieces of the puzzle that these folks are looking for, and it's really coming from the top on down to become more efficient and get those costs reduced across the board. We made this slide as a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's actually not too inaccurate in the sense that when we take a look at paper-based AP processes, and if you were to draw it up, and this might have some relevance to your current situation in the paper world, this is typically what it looks like when you draw it up. And the reason that it looks this way is because of the inherent nature of paper. It's simply an inefficient medium, particularly in the accounts payable world, when we talk about exception handling and the like. This is something that when we look at it, it could actually be a real world scenario, but it's the kind of redundancies and inefficiencies that paper brings to this process. And it's really what an accounts payable automation solution should rectify when it's implemented, is to clarify these processes, have them become reportable, have them become visible in real time. And it's this very chaos that we're trying to address directly. Let's take a look at what accounts payable automation is. I'm going to break it down into 3 larger components, and we'll talk a little bit about each one. The initial piece, the first piece, is to capture the invoices. And a lot of times we're getting invoices via email. We're still handling paper invoices. Maybe somebody has done a scan for us and sent it to us, which is obviously a big help. But we've got to get this content, these invoices, in whatever form they might be in, digitized and ingested into the system. With Bottomline solution, we're actually leveraging our Transform Active Capture solution. And this solution is designed to automatically extract content and data points from that paper invoice post-digitization. So once we've got a digital image, we're able to leverage OCR technology and lift off all the components of the invoice that are pertinent to us. Invoice number, invoice date, invoice total, vendor ID, perhaps some tax information. The list goes on what we're able to configure and extract from that invoice. And again, it goes back to my point about heads-down data entry. Now, our accounts payable staff member, instead of entering every character for every field on every invoice, is simply now looking and verifying with some exceptions that come through this OCR process for characters that may have fallen below a particular threshold level. This simple task, which is completely automated in the sense that once you scan a document in, the capture engine kicks off and does this work for us very, very quickly, I might add. We're now able to get good data going downstream all throughout the process. We want to guard at every point against the false positive so that every point along the way, people who are working in other parts of the AP process are working with clean and verified data for their particular task. Once we've captured the invoice, we've extracted information from it, that information has been verified, we're now going to kick it off into a workflow. And that workflow kickoff is a completely configurable environment. We're going to leverage SharePoint as our document repository and our workflow platform. And we're going to have our workflow sit on the SharePoint platform. Very powerful, very efficient platform SharePoint is for housing images, associating them with metadata, linking them to an ERP system, and also housing and kicking off our workflow solution. So within this workflow, we're able to do some of our matching, 2- and 3-way matching. We're able to code these invoices to their appropriate coding levels. There are audit and reporting capabilities built into this platform. Our approval process is all part and parcel to the workflow environment. And this is where we're able to approve invoices digitally. We're able to afford managers, as an example, and people who need to approve invoices, we're able to afford them a mobile solution so that they can approve invoices without having to be in the office. Again, every point and every step in the process, we're trying to address an inefficiency that is housed in the paper world and eliminate it in every step and every point throughout the process. Our ability to search on any invoice within the system, our ability to do refined searches and bring back groups of documents and groups of invoices based on date ranges or invoice total amounts, as an example, opens up the world to us in having instant and verifiable access to the invoices for questioning. Ultimately, all of these pieces are integrated to Microsoft Dynamics AX. It's done via our Transform AP AX connector. And this gives us our real-time integration where we're living in the ERP. We're actually accessing images and accessing invoices through and while we're in the Microsoft Dynamics environment. And this is real-time integration. This is what opens up the world when we talk about real-time visibility, having real access to real-time data and metrics within our ERP solution. To conclude, we talked about the bottom line AP advantage, right? Automating accounts payable. Real-time integration with Dynamics. That's the real strength of it. Leveraging the existing SharePoint platform and expanding its capabilities so that it becomes our workflow and our document repository platform that we're able to leverage. It's a packaged solution. It's standard out-of-the-box functionality. It's a mature solution. It's going to enable your organization to boost cash yields, improve accountability, visibility, reporting, and thusly increase your productivity. Efficiencies will rise. This is a good holistic look at the bottom line AP automation advantage. Why does accounts payable automation matter? Cash position. Full command of your cash position. Streamline the operations. Eliminate those inefficiencies. Strengthen the relationships and the arrangements you have with your vendors. These are some of the benefits in addition to some of the more tactical ones, but strategic capabilities and enhancements to your organization. How AP can help your business. Again, gain better visibility into the invoice status and audit history and reporting. Once these are scanned and made available via SharePoint, the visibility to these invoices and to the accrual process rises dramatically. Improve your PO match process, matching that invoice to the original purchase order as an example. Implement and improve your workflows. Your current workflow in a paper-based environment, as you probably know, is highly inefficient. It's fraught with redundancies, repetition, physical paper needing to be moved around from office to office. You're able here now to utilize these defined workflows and configure them to your organization specifically. It's an enormous impact. And I think we've got just one more poll, Adam, if you could bring that up before we open it up for some Q&A.
Sure, yep. The poll is now launched.
So the question here, please describe your level of investigation into AP automation. Are you at the early stage? Are you currently evaluating and seeking vendors? Or you are in the late stages and you've maybe got an active project looking to make a decision? We'd like to hear from you there. Just a few more seconds to get folks to submit that. Adam, have you got some results, perhaps?
Yep, I just want to give people like a few more seconds just because we've got a few people that haven't answered.
Sure.
All right, let's check out those results. So please describe your level of investigation into AP automation. 27% said that they're in the early stage. 13% are currently evaluating / seeking vendors. And 7% are engaged in a late stage / active project.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that information. Wanted to start to wrap up the session today with a quote from an existing implementation, a customer of ours here at Bottomline. Before automating, this is a quote from Rolf Van Ringe, before automating, our AP manager's desk was a disaster, and each manager had to receive and comment on paper invoices. Now, with just a few clicks, invoices are routed and approved in a matter of minutes. This is a much better experience for the whole team. It's a simple statement of but one particular experience and his observation looking within his paper-based world and then how it transformed into an automated environment. And what it speaks to is really about the holistic health of his organization. What he had on his hands prior to this was really, as he mentions, an AP manager's desk being a disaster because it's filled with paper, stacks and stacks and stacks of paper invoices that need processing. And it's this area that's hard to sometimes quantify and put a metric to. But when you, and I've seen it with my own eyes, when you look at an AP organization and the staff and the folks that are actually getting the work done, and you see them transform their environment from fully manual and paper-based to fully automated and digitized, the level of happiness within an organization and how these workers become much better employees because they're now being given tools where they're allowed to do the job that they're talented in and what they're hired to do. They're able to exploit that talent now as opposed to chasing paper. And it's a very strong indication of the power of automating accounts payable. Quick some information here briefly about Bottomline as an organization. Just a very short slide here about our global presence. We have lots of customers, lots of happy customers globally, over 10,000 of them. Terrific group of employees working for these customers and focused on delighting them wherever and whenever we can. An award-winning product suite, extremely innovative, and we've, again, solved these solutions for our customers globally. That's Bottomline Technologies. In conclusion, want to open it up. I'm going to turn it back to Adam real quick. I'm going to leave our communication and how you can get in touch with us here up on the screen. But I want to thank you all again for your time and your presence today. I appreciate it. Hope you learned a little something about accounts payable automation, its power. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Great job. Now what I'd like to do is see if anybody has any questions for Lauren. If you have any questions, there's the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen, so please don't hesitate to submit your questions. Lauren will be happy to get to them. We actually have one that came in, Lauren. The question is, how about cash advance and returns in expense management? That's all the question says.
I can speak, yeah, and I can speak to expense management. If you're looking to process expenses, that's not a specific capability within our accounts payable solution. I appreciate the question, though. And should I be able to see? Is there a list there in the Q&A tab?
Yeah, you should be able to see. If you can, it's okay. I'll read you the questions as they come in. Oh, okay, you see it. Okay. All right. Here's a question I have, Lauren. What versions of SharePoint do you support?
That's a good question. So we are currently supporting the latest version, 2013, and we are also backwards compatible to SharePoint 2010.
Looks like we have another question that came in as well. Can I find an invoice without being an AX user?
Good question. So yes, and we did speak about gaining access instantly to these invoices, these images of the invoices via AX, so that you remain in your ERP system and within Dynamics AX, the environment you know and love. Yes, you will certainly be able to access them there, but you can also, and this is a big strength of the SharePoint platform, allow, and this is obviously security-based and through your IT group can be set up so that securely people can access your invoices and search for them separate and apart from the AX environment, that they can simply search for invoice numbers, date ranges, all kinds of different searches, all part and parcel and out of the box, if you will, with the SharePoint platform. Good question.
Another question actually that relates to the cash advance and returns questions. How does it reconcile?
How does it reconcile? Well, in cash advance returns, I'm not equipped to answer in that context. If you're asking how does it reconcile between something like an invoice and matching it against a purchase order, that's all happening with the integration piece. Now that we have the information from the invoice, we're able to then look at the purchase order information within AX and match those components together. If they're not in alignment, we obviously have an exception, and the workflow will alert to that and address accordingly. When I see the word reconcile, I'm not sure I'm answering that correctly, but within the AP world, that's how we would do it with PO matching.
We've got another question as well. How long does the average installation take?
So typically we're in weeks, not months, of installation or actual effort, but those weeks of effort can typically run through a 2, perhaps 3-month period, depending on the complexities. It typically comes down to the level of complexities within the workflow components, and each individual organization has their own specific requirements when it comes to what the workflow is actually going to perform and how that process needs to take place. So that seems to be our largest X factor, if you will, is in the workflow. But again, weeks, not months.
All right, let's see if we get any more questions in here. Once again, people, don't be shy. The Q&A box will welcome your questions, and Lauren will welcome your questions as well.
And it's free.
That's true, it is.
Your questions won't cost you a thing. I'm not seeing any on my screen if you're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, no, looks like maybe that's all for questions today. So why don't we, actually, here we go. Does AP automation need to have a document management system?
No, indeed, our implementation of our Bottomline solution will leverage SharePoint as your document repository. So there is not a requirement to have one. We're going to again leverage SharePoint as that document repository.
All right, great. All right, so I think maybe we'll end here. Once again, I want to thank everybody for attending. And if you have any further questions, Lauren, maybe you can give them your email. I don't know if you already gave that to them earlier on.
We're actually going to use these on the Get in Touch screen because we're getting folks coming in globally here. We'll need to direct them to their appropriate regional reps. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. All right, thank you, Lauren, for a great presentation. Once again, the session's recorded, and we'll be posting it online within the next day or so. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you all.